Hello students, welcome back to another online lecture of the online lecture series initiated by Shet Vidya Mandir English High School and Junior College of Science and Commerce, Vasai. I am Mrs. Snehal Falkau. Students, today we are going to study a poem from section 2 of your English course book. The name of the poem is The Inchcape Rock, composed by Robert Southey. Let us learn more about the poet. Robert Southey was born in Bristol, in England. He was the son of a draper, educated at Westminster School and Balliol College, Oxford. He was an English poet of the Romantic school. He was a poet laureate of England from 1813 until his death in 1843. Some of his short poems like The Scholar, The Battle of Blenheim, Bishop Hatto, The Inchcape Rock, etc. are very popular with school children. He is principally remembered as author of the poem After Blenheim and the original version of the famous Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Before we move on to reading the poem, let us take a look at what exactly is the Inchcape Rock. The Inchcape Rock is a sandstone reef. Reef means a rock beneath the surface of water. The Inchcape Rock is located about 11 miles off the east coast of Angus, Scotland. The main hazard that the reef presents to shipping is that only a relatively small portion of it is above water, but a large section of the surrounding area is extremely shallow and dangerous and has led to many shipwrecks. Shipwreck means an accident that destroys a ship at sea. To avoid this, the Bell Rock Lighthouse was constructed on top of the Inchcape Rock between 1807 and 1810. The poem The Inchcape Rock, set in the 14th century Scotland, is a ballad written by the English poet Robert Southey. Like many of Southey's ballads, The Inchcape Rock describes a supernatural event. Published in the year 1802, the poem tells the legendary story of the 14th century attempt by the Abbot of Aberbrothock to install a warning bell on the Inchcape Rock, which was later removed by a pirate. So, what is a ballad? A ballad is a song that tells a story, and it can be dramatic, funny, or romantic. Traditionally, the ballad has been considered a folkloric verse narrative which has strong associations with communal dancing. Generally, the term is used for a narrative poem which uses an elliptical and highly stylized mode of narration. The technique of repetition with variation may play an important part in it. From the 18th century onwards, collections of folk or popular ballads began to be made. The form was taken up by some of the most influential poets of the late 18th century as a folkloric form of expression. A typical ballad consists of stanzas that contain a quatrain or four poetic lines. Some ballads have a refrain or a repeated chorus, just like a song does. The rhyme scheme adds musical quality to the poem. One of the famous ballads is The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by English poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Now, let us read the poem. The poem consists of 17 quatrains, means There are 17 stanzas and each stanza consists of 4 lines. The entire poem is written in rhyming couplets, that is, 2 lines rhyme with each other. Hence, the rhyme scheme followed in the poem is A, A, B, B. Now, let us read the poem. No stir in the air, no stir in the sea. The ship was as still as she could be. Her sails from heaven received no motion. Her keel was steady in the ocean. Without either sign or sound of their shock, the waves flowed over the Inchcape Rock. So little they rose, so little they fell. They did not move the Inchcape bell. The abbot of Aberbrothock had placed that bell on the Inchcape Rock. On a buoy in the storm it floated and swung, and over the waves its warning rung. When the rock was hid by the surge's swell, the mariners heard the warning bell, and then they knew the perilous rock and blessed the abbot of Aberbrothock. The sun in heaven was shining gay. All the things were joyful on that day. The seabirds screamed as they wheeled around, and there was joyance in their sound. The buoy of the Inchcape bell was seen, a darker speck on the ocean green. Sir Ralph the rover walked his deck, and he fixed his eye on the darker speck. He felt the cheering power of spring. It made him whistle, it made him sing. His heart was mirthful to access, but the rover's mirth was wickedness. His eye was on the Inchcape float. Quoth he, my men, put out the boat, and row me to the Inchcape Rock, and I'll plague the abbot of Aberbrothock. The boat is lowered, the boatmen row, and to the Inchcape Rock they go. Sir Ralph bent over from the boat, and he cut the bell from the Inchcape float. Down sunk the bell with a gurgling sound. The bubbles rose and burst around. Quoth Sir Ralph, the next who comes to the rock won't bless the abbot of Aberbrothock. Sir Ralph the rover sailed away. He scoured the seas for many a day, and now, grown rich with plundered store, he steers his course for Scotland's shore. So thick a haze overspreads the sky, they cannot see the sun on high. The wind hath blown a gale all day, at evening it had died away. On the deck Sir Rover takes his stand. So dark it is they see no land. Quoth Sir Ralph, it will be lighter soon, for there is the dawn of the rising moon. Canst hear, said one, the breakers roar, for methinks we should be near the shore. Now where we are I cannot tell, but I wish I could hear the Inchcape bell. They hear no sound, the swell is strong. Though the wind hath fallen, they drift along, till the vessels strike with a shivering shock. O Christ, it is the Inchcape Rock. Sir Ralph the rover tore his hair. He cursed himself in his despair. The waves rush in every side. The ship is sinking beneath the tide. But even in his dying fear, one dreadful sound could the rover hear. A sound as if with the Inchcape bell, the devil below was ringing his knell. By Robert Southey. Now, let us study the stanza-wise explanation of the poem. First stanza. No stir in the air, no stir in the sea. The ship was as still as she could be. Her sails from heaven received no motion. Her keel was steady in the ocean. Students, in this stanza, the poet sets the natural setting and describes the calmness of the sea. The sea was calm and there was no stir, that is, movement in the air. The ship was standing motionless in the absence of winds as well as sea currents. Her sails were not moving. Sails means the large pieces of fabric by the means of which wind is used to propel a sailing vessel or ship. Her keel was steady, that is, in its fixed position. Keel is a structure along the base of a ship. Second stanza. Without either sign or sound of their shock, the waves flowed over the Inchcape Rock. So little they rose, so little they fell. They did not move the Inchcape bell. In this stanza, the poet describes the mild waves. The waves were flowing over the Inchcape Rock very silently without making any sound. They were rising and falling at such a slow pace that they could not even manage to ring the bell that had been placed on the Inchcape Rock to signal the sailors of the presence of the reef. Third stanza. The abbot of Aberbrothock had placed that bell on the Inchcape Rock. On a buoy in the storm it floated and swung, and over the waves its warning rung. In this stanza, the poet talks about the history of the bell. The word abbot means the head of the monks. In this stanza, the poet reveals the history that the abbot of Aberbrothock was a spiritual man. He was aware of the danger posed by the Inchcape Rock. During a storm, the seamen could not see the half-hidden Inchcape Rock. A collision between the ship and the rock could make the ship sink. So, the abbot installed the bell at the Inchcape on a buoy to warn the sailors about a possible tragedy. Buoy means a floating object anchored in the sea to mark dangerous places. Due to that bell, during a storm, the waves crashed against the buoy and the buoy would move violently, causing the bell to ring as a warning to all the sailors. Fourth stanza. When the rock was hid by the surge's swell, the mariners heard the warning bell, and they knew the perilous rock and blessed the abbot of Aberbrothock. In this stanza, the poet highlights the fact that the Inchcape Rock, which was underwater, was hidden by the surge's swell, that is, the sudden and great rise in the level of the sea. The mariners, that is, the sailors, could hear the warning bell and know that the perilous, that is, dangerous rock was near, and so they could avoid colliding with it, and for this they thanked, blessed, and expressed their good wishes to the abbot for his kindness and compassion. Blessed is the Old English word for blessed, B-L-E-S-S-E-D. Fifth stanza. The sun in heaven was shining gay. All things were joyful on that day. The sea birds screamed as they wheeled around, and there was joyance in their sound. In this stanza, the poet describes the cheerful atmosphere. One particular day, it all looked joyful. The sun was shining gay, that is, brightly. The seabirds were screaming with joy as they wheeled around, that is, moved around. Joyance is a poetic word for joy. Sixth stanza. The buoy of the Inchcape bell was seen, a darker speck on the ocean green. Sir Ralph the rover walked his deck, and he fixed his eye on the darker speck. In this stanza, the reader gets the first glimpse of Sir Ralph, who is the captain of the anchored ship. On that particular cheerful day, the buoy on which the Inchcape bell had been installed was clearly visible as a dark speck, that is, a tiny spot in the green ocean. Sir Ralph the rover stood on the deck of his ship and spotted this speck, that is, the Inchcape bell. Seventh stanza. He felt the cheering power of spring. It made him whistle, it made him sing. His heart was mirthful to access, but the rover's mirth was wickedness. In this stanza, the poet describes Sir Ralph's feelings and emotions. The beautiful and the cheerful day added joy to his spirits. He whistled and sang in delight. His heart was extremely mirthful. Mirthful means full of joy and merriment. However, his mirth, that is, his joy and happiness, wasn't pure, and it came from wicked and evil thoughts running in his mind after spotting the warning bell on the buoy. Eighth stanza. His eye was on the Inchcape float. Quoth he, my men, put out the boat, and row me to the Inchcape Rock, and I'll plague the abbot of Aberbrothock. In this stanza, Sir Ralph, who now had an evil plan in his mind, tells his crew to put out the boat and sail him to the Inchcape Rock, so that he could destroy the bell and thus cause trouble for the sailors in spotting the Inchcape Rock. Quote is an Old English word for quote, Quote. He wanted to plague, that is, spoil the good name and good work done by the abbot of Aberbrothock. Ninth stanza. The boat is lowered, the boatmen row, and to the Inchcape Rock they go. Sir Ralph bent over the boat, and he cut the bell from the Inchcape float. In this stanza, we get to know that the boatmen row the boat to the Inchcape Rock. Sir Ralph bends over from his boat and cuts the bell from the Inchcape float, that is, the buoy on which the bell had been placed. 10th stanza. Down sunk the bell with a gurgling sound. The bubbles rose and burst around. Quoth Sir Ralph, the next who comes to the rock won't bless the abbot of Aberbrothock. As soon as Sir Ralph cuts off the bell from the buoy, it sinks in the water, making a gurgling sound and causing bubbles to rise and burst on the surface of the ocean water. Sir Ralph predicts that the ships and the sailors would no more be saved from the danger of the Inchcape Rock, and they would no more bless the abbot of Aberbrothock. 11th stanza. Sir Ralph the rover sailed away. He scoured the seas for many a day, and now, grown rich with plundered store, he steers his course for Scotland's shore. Proud of his evil deed, Sir Ralph sailed away from the Inchcape Rock. He scoured means travelled freely on the seas for many days. He did his pirate job meanwhile. That is, he plundered, means he looted the treasures that he found on his way. And when he was done and had grown rich with the plundered treasures, he steers, that is, directs the course of the ship back to the Scottish shores. 12th stanza. So thick a haze o'erspreads the sky, they cannot see the sun on high. The wind hath blown a gale all day, at evening it had died away. The day when Sir Ralph was returning to the Scottish shores, a thick haze, that is, mist or fog, spread all over the sky. The sun became invisible due to the haze. The strong wind that had been blowing all throughout the day had now died away by evening. Hath is an old English word for had, H-A-D. 13th stanza. On the deck, the rover takes his stand. So dark it is, they see no land. Quoth Sir Ralph, it will be lighter soon, for there is the dawn of the rising moon. Sir Ralph stands on the deck of his ship, but he is unable to see any land around him, as it has become very dark due to the foggy atmosphere. He tells his worried crew that once the moon rises, there will be some light in the sky, and they would be able to see the land again. 14th stanza. Can't steer, said one, the breakers roar, for methinks we should be near the shore. Now, where we are I cannot tell, but I wish I could hear the Inchcape bell. One of the seamen of Sir Ralph's crew says that he could not locate the exact position in the sea. He thinks that they must be near the shore, since he could not hear the breakers roar. Breakers means the waves. Methinks is an old English word for I think. The seaman says that it is impossible to figure out their exact location. He wishes that he could hear the Inchcape bell so as to figure out exactly where they were in the sea. 15th stanza. They hear no sound, the swell is strong. Though the wind hath fallen, they drift along, till the vessel strikes with a shivering shock. O Christ, it is the Inchcape Rock. Meanwhile, they hear no sound. The sea gets more turbulent, that is, violent with winds. The wind now also drops to a standstill, and the ship is now in the grip of the waves, and they are drifting along with the waves wherever it was taking them. They had no clue where they were. And suddenly the vessel, that is, the ship, strikes something, and it is shaking and shivering completely. And then they realize that they have hit the perilous, that is, the dangerous Inchcape Rock. 16th stanza. Sir Ralph the Rover tore his hair. He cursed himself in his despair. The waves rush in on every side. The ship is sinking beneath the tide. After having realized his horrible mistake, Sir Ralph tore his hair, means pulled his hair hard, and cursed himself in despair. Meanwhile, the water starts rushing in from all sides and enters the ship, and the ship starts to sink with the high tide of the water. 17th stanza. But even in his dying fear, one dreadful sound could the rover hear, a sound as if with the Inchcape bell the devil below was ringing his knell. As the ship was sinking down in the sea, and as Sir Ralph breathed his last, he could hear a dreadful sound, that is, a sound causing fear and terror. This dreadful sound that he could hear sounded like a devil was ringing his death knell below the sea with the Inchcape bell that he himself had cut off. Knell is the sound of a bell rung slowly at a person's funeral. This sound that the rover could hear was the final sound of his fateful demise. It was deathly music of revenge and a song of poetic justice being done. So, what values do we learn from this poem? This poem conveys a moral lesson. Sir Ralph was an evil man. He was jealous of the abbot of Aberbrothock. He wanted to do evil unto others. So he cut off the bell placed on the Inchcape Rock to cause trouble and suffering to the other ships and sailors. But he fell into the pit of his own making. He died as his ship sunk because they were unable to hear the warning bell that he himself had cut off the Inchcape Rock. The poem gives us a message that those who do wrong things will meet with due punishment in the end. The poem is based on the rule of nature, which says, "As you sow, so shall you reap," which means that every man definitely gets the results of his deeds. If he does good unto others, he gets good in return. And if he does evil unto others, he is paid back with evil. That is all from today's video. Thank you.